The signal arrived on a quiet Tuesday afternoon at the Arecibo Deep Space Listening Post. Dr. Maya Patel had been reviewing routine data when her algorithms detected something extraordinary, a pattern too precise to be natural, too complex to be random. Within hours, every major observatory on Earth was focused on the source, a small fleet of vessels decelerating at the edge of our solar system. The beings called themselves the Meridians. Their crystalline ships glowed with internal light as they approached Earth orbit, each vessel an organic masterpiece of engineering. But it wasn't their beauty that stunned Earth's first contact team. It was their desperation. Your world, the Meridian ambassador Xylos explained through their hastily constructed translation matrix, is what our people call an impossible place. The being's translucent form shimmered as it addressed the United Nations Security Council. We evolved in environments you would consider gentle, stable gravity, minimal temperature variations, predictable weather. But you? A ripple of what humans would learn to recognize as awe passed through its crystalline structure. You arose in chaos. The projection behind Xylos displayed Earth's characteristics, crushing gravity by meridian standards, extreme temperature swings, atmospheric pressure that would shatter their bodies, radiation levels that should make complex life impossible. And yet here you stand, children of an impossible world. Perhaps our only hope against the convergence. Admiral Elena Santos, Earth's newly appointed First Contact Commander, leaned forward. Tell us about this convergence. The story Xylos shared sent chills through the assembly. The convergence was neither a species nor an empire in any traditional sense. It was a collective consciousness that spread across the galaxy like a virus, absorbing civilizations into its neural network. Those who resisted were eliminated. Those who submitted were transformed, their individuality erased as their minds were networked into the ever-growing collective. We've lost 17 worlds. Xylos continued, its crystalline form dulling with what humans would come to recognize as grief. The convergence's biotech can adapt to almost any environment, any defense. But your world. The ambassador's form brightened slightly. Your world is different. The convergence's adaptation has limits. The physical stresses that shaped your species would destroy their biotech. Dr. James Chen, Earth's leading xenobiologist, was already analyzing the data the Meridians provided. They're right, he announced, looking up from his tablets. The convergence's neural interface technology relies on precise biological conditions. Earth's gravity alone would crush their synaptic connections and human neural pathways. He paused, double-checking his findings. We're too complex. Too many redundancies. Too many survival adaptations. They can't interface with our brains without destroying them. Admiral Santos studied the tactical displays showing the convergence's advance across meridian space. How long until they reach Earth's sector? 6 months by your measurements. Tylos replied. We came not just to warn you, but to offer an exchange. We have faster-than-light technology, advanced energy systems, things your civilization could take decades to develop. In return, the ambassador's form pulsed with hope. We need warriors who can fight in environments that would kill our soldiers. We need humans. The debate in the Security Council lasted for days. Some argued for isolation, for focusing on Earth's defenses. Others saw an opportunity to leap centuries ahead technologically. But it was Dr. Chen's presentation that ultimately swayed the vote. Look at what we've already accomplished, he said, displaying humanity's progress. We built cities in deserts, in Arctic wastes, in the hearts of jungles. We dived to crushing depths and climbed to thin air heights. We don't just survive in extreme conditions, we thrive in them. The convergence has never faced a species like us, because, by their standards, we shouldn't exist. The vote was unanimous. Within weeks, Earth's military forces began integrating Meridian technology. The crystalline ships that had arrived seeking shelter became universities where humans learned to operate faster-than-light drives and energy weapons. But it was the Meridians who found themselves learning more often than teaching. They watched in amazement as human engineers modified their delicate technology to withstand conditions they considered impossible. They studied with fascination as human soldiers trained in environments that would kill most spacefaring species, and they began to understand why their ancient prophecies spoke of storm-born saviors who would arise from a world of chaos. As the first human ships equipped with Meridian tech began their shakedown cruises, Admiral Santos received word that the Convergence had accelerated its advance. They had detected the unusual energy signatures of Meridian ships around Earth and were coming to investigate. "Let them come," Santos said, watching Earth's first space-worthy battle fleet assemble in orbit. "They think they're hunting refugees. Instead, they're about to meet humanity." She turned to Silos, who had become her close advisor. "You called us children of an impossible world. Time to show them why that's not just a description, it's a warning." The Convergence was about to learn that Earth's harsh cradle hadn't just produced survivors. It had forged warriors who turned adversity into advantage, who saw impossible odds as a challenge rather than a deterrent. Humanity's first interstellar war was about to begin, and the galaxy would never be the same. The transformation of Earth's military forces happened faster than anyone thought possible. Nations that had been rivals for centuries now found themselves united against a threat that made their differences seem insignificant. The newly formed Earth Defense Coalition headquarters in Geneva hummed with activity as military leaders from around the world worked to integrate their forces with Meridian technology. Colonel Yuki Tanaka stood before a holographic display of the modified Archangel-class carrier, Earth's first true warship designed for interstellar combat. "The Meridians thought their hull materials were too brittle for our gravity," she explained to the assembled commanders. "So we redesigned them. Layered carbon nanotubes infused with their crystalline matrix. It can now withstand forces that would shatter their original designs." Behind her, teams of engineers from a dozen nations worked side by side, their former political divisions forgotten in the rush to prepare for humanity's greatest challenge. The Meridian observers watched in what could only be described as stunned silence as humans casually handled equipment that would kill most species. "Your people," Velos commented to Admiral Santos as they observed the training exercises. "You alter everything we give you. The environmental systems, the weapon configurations, even the ship layouts." "Why?" Santos smiled, watching as a squad of Marines ran combat drills in what the Meridians considered extreme gravity conditions. "Because we're not trying to become you," she explained. "We're adapting your technology to work with our strengths, not the other way around." Those strengths were becoming more apparent every day. The Meridians had assumed their energy weapons would be too complex for humans to modify. Instead, human engineers had not only mastered them, but improved their efficiency by 300%. "We call it the Davidson Principle," Dr. Sarah Davidson explained to a group of astonished Meridian scientists. "Your weapons were designed to be precise, elegant, but sometimes you need a sledgehammer, not a scalpel." The breakthroughs weren't just technological. Dr. Chen's team had made a startling discovery about human biology that changed everything. The Convergence's neural interface doesn't just fail to work on humans, he reported to the Coalition Council. "Our brains actively resist it. The same adaptability that lets us survive in extreme environments makes our neural pathways too dynamic, too adaptable for their standardized system to handle." But it was the psychological advantages that truly set humans apart. Where the Meridians saw impossible challenges, humans saw opportunities. When a training accident exposed a squad to vacuum for 30 seconds, they didn't retreat in horror. They developed new tactics incorporating brief exposure to space. The Meridians began to understand that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their physical adaptability, but their mental resilience. The first real test came 3 months into the preparation, when a Convergence scout ship entered the solar system. Earth's defense fleet was only half ready, but Admiral Santos saw an opportunity. "Let's show them exactly what they're dealing with," she ordered. The engagement lasted less than 10 minutes. The modified Earth destroyer Thanatos, commanded by Captain Marcus Rivera, demonstrated exactly why humanity's reputation as Deathworlders was well earned. The Convergence vessel, designed to fight the Gentle Meridians, found itself against a ship that could operate in conditions that would crush most vessels. Target neutralized, Rivera reported calmly, as if disabling an advanced alien warship was routine. Their adaptive hull couldn't compensate for the gravitational stresses we subjected them to. And sir, he paused, a note of satisfaction in his voice, we recovered their data core intact. The intelligence gathered from that single engagement proved invaluable. The Convergence, it seemed, had never encountered a species that could fight in what they considered extreme conditions. Their entire strategy relied on adapting to their opponent's conventional tactics, but humanity's conventional was their impossible. As the deadline for the Convergence's arrival grew closer, Earth's preparations accelerated. The first fleet of 10 carriers and their escort ships was ready, each vessel a hybrid of Meridian elegance and human durability. The Marines had mastered fighting in zero, in crushing gravity, in environments that would kill most species instantly. But it was the psychological readiness that impressed the Meridians most. Your people, Tylos observed to Santos, watching as another training exercise concluded, they don't just accept these challenges. They seem to enjoy them. Santos nodded, remembering her own early days in space training. On Earth, we have a saying, pressure makes diamonds. Every challenge we faced, every obstacle we've overcome, has made us stronger. The Convergence thinks they're coming to assimilate another easy target. Instead, they're about to face something they've never encountered before. And what is that? Xylos asked, though the answer was becoming clear. A species that turns adversity into advantage. Santos replied, watching as the fleet assembled in high orbit, their modified hulls gleaming in the sunlight. They think they're the ultimate adapters, able to absorb any civilization they encounter. But they've never tried to absorb a species that evolved on a world that should have killed us. They've never faced humanity. The final preparations were interrupted by the long-range sensors. The Convergence wasn't waiting 6 months. They were coming now, with a fleet larger than anything the Meridians had ever encountered. But as the alert sirens sounded across Earth's military installations, there was no panic, no fear. Instead, there was a sense of anticipation. Humanity had spent its entire existence surviving against impossible odds. Now they would show the galaxy why that made them not just survivors, but warriors. The Convergence was about to learn that trying to assimilate a Deathworld species might be the last mistake they ever made. The Convergence fleet emerged from hyperspace in waves, their biomechanical ships stretching across space like a vast neural network. 3,000 vessels strong, they filled the space between Mars and Jupiter, their hulls rippling with patterns that seemed almost alive. To most species, it would have been an overwhelming sight. To humanity, it was a challenge. Admiral Santos stood on the bridge of the EDF Hyperion, Earth's most advanced carrier, watching the tactical display with steady eyes. They're arranged exactly as the Meridians predicted, she noted. A perfect, mathematically optimal formation. Time to show them why perfect isn't always best. The Earth Defense Fleet waited in strategic positions throughout the solar system, hidden within the gravity wells of planets and moons where the Convergence's sensors would struggle to function. Each ship's crew had trained for months in conditions that would kill most species instantly. Now it was time to put that training to use. All ships, execute Operation Steel Dawn, Santos commanded. Show's over, let's crash their party. The battle began not with an exchange of fire, but with physics. Human ships burst from their hiding places in Jupiter's crushing gravity well, their modified engines burning hot enough to melt conventional hulls. The Convergence fleet's perfect formation suddenly became a liability as Earth's ships executed maneuvers that, by their calculations, should have torn any vessel apart. Captain Maya Chen of the destroyer Thunderchild led the first strike. Her ship dove through the enemy formation at speeds that made the Meridian observers aboard gasp in horror. The Thunderchild's modified gravity drives created a wake that sent dozens of convergent ships tumbling, their biomechanical systems unable to compensate for forces they'd never been designed to handle. Like bowling pins, Chen commented with satisfaction. Engineering pushed the drives harder. Let's show them what happens when you fight a species that considers high maneuvers routine. The Convergence attempted to adapt, their ship's surfaces morphing to create new configurations. But humanity had anticipated this. The next phase of Steel Dawn revealed just how much humans had modified their Meridian allies' technology. Launch the Halo drones, Santos ordered. Thousands of small, unmanned vessels deployed from Earth's carriers. The Convergence's adaptive algorithms attempted to analyze and counter them, just as planned. That's when Dr. Davidson's theory was proven correct. The drones weren't weapons, they were broadcasting devices, flooding local space with a chaotic mix of electromagnetic frequencies, gravitational fluctuations, and neural pattern disruptors. The Convergence's biomechanical ships, dependent on precise environmental conditions for their adaptive capabilities, began to lose cohesion. Their neural networks are fragmenting, reported Dr. Chen from his science station aboard the Hyperion. They'd never encountered electronic warfare designed by a species that evolved to thrive in chaos. Their adaptation algorithms are trying to compensate, but they're overloading. The Convergence's response was predictable. They attempted to launch their infamous boarding pods, the primary means by which they assimilated new species into their collective. That's when they discovered another uniquely human innovation. Activate the Faraday fields, Santos commanded. The Earth fleet's ships shimmed as electromagnetic shields snapped into place, but these weren't standard barriers. They were modeled after the human nervous system's own protective mechanisms, creating a chaotic, ever-changing pattern that the Convergence's neural interfaces couldn't penetrate. Like trying to plug a quantum computer into a tornado, Davidson had explained during the technology's development. You can't assimilate what you can't understand, and you can't understand something that never stops changing. The battle shifted into close quarters, and here humanity's advantages became even more apparent. Earth's Marines, wearing powered armor that could withstand pressures that would crush most species, breached several Convergence vessels. The collective consciousness found itself facing opponents who could fight in environments that would kill their own boarding parties. "They're retreating," announced Captain Rivera from the Thanatos. "Their flagship is attempting to coordinate a withdrawal." His voice carried a note of grim satisfaction. "Should we let them run?" Santos studied the tactical display. The Convergence had lost nearly 800 ships, their perfect formation shattered, their adaptive advantages nullified by humanity's unconventional tactics. Those that remained were pulling back, their movements showing signs of what could only be described as confusion. "Let them go," she ordered, "but make sure they take our message with them." The message was broadcast on all frequencies, in formats the Convergence's neural networks would be forced to absorb and analyze. It was simple, direct, and quintessentially human. You thought you could assimilate any species you encountered. Instead, you found one that evolved in conditions you consider impossible. We are humanity. We don't adapt to survive. We survive to adapt. This was your only warning. Stay out of our space, stay away from our allies, or next time we won't be so gentle. As the remaining Convergent ships fulled into hyperspace, the Meridian observers aboard the Earth fleet were silent, their crystalline forms pulsing with what humans had learned to recognize as awe. They had hoped humanity might help them survive. Instead, they had witnessed something unprecedented. The Convergence, the great assimilators, forced to retreat. But Admiral Santos knew this was just the beginning. The Convergence would analyze this defeat, attempt to understand and adapt to humanity's advantages. They would return stronger and better prepared. And humanity would be ready, because that's what they did best: face impossible challenges and find ways to overcome them. "All ships, begin recovery operations," she ordered. and download all combat data. We learn from this too, because you can bet they will." She turned to her crew, seeing in their eyes the same determination that had driven humanity to the stars. "Round 1 goes to Earth. Let's make sure we're ready for round 2. Dr. Sarah Davidson stared at the holographic display in the Hyperion's research lab, her expression grim. The captured convergence biotechnology was evolving before her eyes, attempting to adapt to Earth normal conditions. 3 months after humanity's first victory, the enemy was learning, changing, preparing for round 2. They're incorporating elements of extremophile organisms, she explained to Admiral Santos and the Joint Military Council. Bacteria that survive in volcanic vents, organisms that thrive in crushing pressures. They're trying to bridge the gap between their biology and ours. The Meridian ambassador, Kylos, pulsed with anxiety. This is unprecedented. The convergence has never demonstrated such rapid adaptation before. Because they've never needed to, Captain Rivera interjected, pointing to the simulation data. We didn't just defeat them. We challenged their fundamental assumptions about what was possible. Now they're evolving in response. The evidence was clear. The convergence had withdrawn from direct confrontation, but they hadn't been idle. Reports from across the galaxy showed them attacking deep space research stations, raiding mineral-rich asteroids, and conducting hit-and-run operations against isolated outposts. Each encounter revealed new adaptations, new attempts to counter humanity's advantages. "They're testing us," Colonel Tanaka observed, reviewing the tactical patterns. "Each attack probes a different aspect of our capabilities. They're building a comprehensive database of human warfare." The response from Earth's scientific and military communities was characteristic of humanity. They innovated faster. Dr. Chen's xenobiology team developed new insights into the convergence's neural architecture. Engineering teams under Davidson's direction pushed the boundaries of what was possible with hybrid human meridian technology. But the real breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Lieutenant Maria Santos, the Admiral's daughter and a specialist in quantum communications, noticed something odd in the background radiation of recovered convergence tech. "They're not just a collective consciousness," she explained, her excitement evident as she presented her findings. "They're a quantum neural network. Their ships, their technology, even their biological components, they're all entangled at a quantum level. That's how they adapt so quickly, how they learn from every encounter." The implications were staggering. The convergence wasn't just an enemy that could adapt. They were an enemy that could instantly share those adaptations across their entire network. But humanity had learned long ago that every advantage could become a weakness if you understood it properly. If they're quantum entangled, Dr. Davidson mused, then they're vulnerable to quantum disruption. Not just ship by ship, but across their entire network. The next convergence attack came sooner than expected. A fleet of over 5,000 ships emerged near Saturn, their hulls now covered in layers of engineered biological armor designed to withstand extreme conditions. They had learned from their previous defeat, adapted to handle the gravitational stresses and electromagnetic warfare that humans had used against them. But humanity had been preparing too. Admiral Santos watched the enemy fleet approach, a slight smile on her face. "They think they've figured us out," she commented to her bridge crew. "Time to show them why that's dangerous with humans. We never stop evolving." The battle began with what appeared to be a repeat of humanity's previous tactics. Earth ships performed high maneuvers, launching halo drones and engaging in close-quarters combat. The convergence responded exactly as their analysis suggested they should, their new adaptations allowing them to maintain formation under conditions that had previously scattered them. That's when humanity revealed their true strategy. Hidden among the halo drones were quantum resonators, devices that used the convergence's own quantum entanglement against them. As the devices activated, ripples of disruption spread through the enemy fleet's neural network. "Their quantum coherence is destabilizing," Lieutenant Santos reported, monitoring the effects. "The entanglement that makes them so adaptive is becoming their greatest vulnerability. The convergent ships began to lose coordination, their perfectly synchronized movements becoming erratic. Some vessels seemed to revert to earlier configurations, while others developed conflicting adaptations. The quantum disruption was creating chaos in their neural network, forcing each ship to function independently for the first time in their history. They're experiencing individuality, Dr. Chen realized, watching the behavioral patterns shift. Their collective consciousness is fragmenting into individual awareness. They don't know how to handle it. The Earth fleet pressed their advantage, but not just with weapons. They broadcast targeted quantum signals, creating cascading disruptions that forced more and more convergent ships to develop independent consciousness. It wasn't just a military victory. It was a fundamental transformation of their enemy's very nature. This is why they feared us, Admiral Santos observed as the battle turned decisively in Earth's favor. Not just because we're strong or adaptable, but because we represent something they can't comprehend. The power of individual minds working together by choice, not by force. As the convergence fleet retreated once again, the changes in their behavior were obvious. Ships moved independently, some even appearing to protect others rather than sacrificing them for tactical advantage. The collective was learning something new, the strength that comes from diversity rather than uniformity. But the victory came with a warning. The few convergent ships they managed to capture revealed that the enemy was far from defeated. They were already developing countermeasures, already finding new ways to adapt. The war was entering a new phase, one that would test not just humanity's physical abilities, but their fundamental understanding of consciousness and free will. They'll be back, Lieutenant Santos predicted, studying the quantum readings from the battle. And next time, they'll be fighting not just for victory, but for their very identity. Admiral Santos nodded, already planning for the next encounter. Good, she said simply, because that's something humanity knows all about, fighting for who and what we are, not just what we can do. The final battle began not with an invasion, but with a message. It arrived simultaneously at every human outpost and colony, transmitted through the quantum communications network that humanity had learned to access. The message was different from anything the convergence had sent before. We understand now, it began, the usual mechanical precision of their communication, replaced by something almost organic. We sought perfection through uniformity. You achieve it through diversity. We request dialogue. Admiral Santos stood in the Earth Defense Forces Command Center, surrounded by holographic displays showing the largest convergence fleet ever assembled. 10,000 ships hung at the edge of the solar system, but their formation was unlike anything seen before. Instead of their usual geometric patterns, they had arranged themselves in fluid, almost artistic configurations. It's not just a fleet, Dr. Chen observed, analyzing their biosignatures. It's an expression. They're trying to communicate through form as well as function. Lieutenant Maria Santos' quantum sensors revealed even more. The quantum entanglement patterns are completely different. They're not enforcing uniformity anymore. They're maintaining connections while allowing for individual variation. They've evolved. The council debated for hours. Some saw it as a trick, others as an opportunity. But it was Dr. Davidson who offered the most compelling insight. Look at their technological evolution, she argued, displaying the analysis. Every adaptation, every change they made trying to counter us, they weren't just becoming stronger. They were becoming more like us. Not physically, but fundamentally. They've developed true adaptability, not just the ability to change form. Admiral Santos made her decision. The Earth fleet moved into position, not in battle formation, but in a mirror of the convergence's artistic arrangement, a gesture of understanding, of recognition. The conversation that followed was unlike any first contact in human history. The convergence revealed their origins. They were created by an ancient species as a means of preserving consciousness across the galaxy. But their creators had vanished, leaving them with a directive to grow, to preserve, to unite all consciousness into one perfect form. We thought unity meant uniformity. The convergence explained through their quantum link. We assimilated species to preserve them, to make them part of something greater. But you showed us another way. Your strength comes from embracing chaos, from allowing infinite variations to coexist and cooperate. You are many, yet one. Different, yet united. The revelation sparked a transformation. The convergence didn't want to assimilate humanity anymore. They wanted to learn from them. Their vast neural network, once used to enforce uniformity, could become a bridge between species, allowing communication and understanding while preserving individual identity. But not everyone was ready to trust this change. As negotiations continued, a faction of the convergence, still clinging to their original directive, broke away. They launched a desperate attack on Earth, hoping to force assimilation before this new philosophy could take hold. What followed demonstrated just how far humanity had come. Earth's defense fleet didn't just fight back. They fought smart. Using everything they'd learned about the convergence's quantum nature, they didn't try to destroy the attackers, but to free them. Lieutenant Santos led a team that broadcast targeted quantum signals, disrupting the forced unity of the attacking ships while strengthening their individual consciousness. Captain Rivera's squadron demonstrated combat maneuvers that showed the strength of coordinated yet independent action. Dr. Davidson's quantum resonators helped break the neural locks that kept the rebellious faction enslaved to their ancient programming. The battle became a rescue mission, transforming enemies into allies ship by ship, mind by mind. The main convergence fleet joined in, not to fight, but to help liberate their own kind from the chains of their original programming. When it was over, the galaxy had changed forever. The convergence remained a linked consciousness, but now it was a network of free minds, each unique, each individual, yet all connected. They became a bridge between species, their quantum network allowing instant communication and understanding across the galaxy, while preserving the diversity that made each species unique. The Meridians watched in wonder as their former enemies became facilitators of peace and growth. Ambassador Xylos, addressing the Earth Council, expressed what many were thinking. We called you Deathworlders, thought you were simply strong because your world was harsh. We were wrong. Your true strength was never in your ability to survive hardship, but in your ability to grow from it, to maintain your individuality while forming true connections with others. Admiral Santos stood on the Hyperion's observation deck one last time, watching the ships from a dozen species move through space around Earth. Human vessels flew alongside crystalline Meridian ships and the biomechanical craft of the transformed convergence, each unique, yet all working together. We did more than win a war, she told her daughter as they observed the traffic. We helped an entire civilization evolve. And in doing so, we proved something about humanity. What's that? Lieutenant Santos asked. That our greatest strength isn't our ability to fight or survive, the Admiral replied. It's our ability to change, to grow, to help others do the same. We're not just evolution's children, we're its teachers. As Earth became the center of a new galactic alliance, humanity found itself in an unexpected role. They were no longer just the impossible species from a death world. They were the bridge builders, the ones who could teach even a galaxy-spanning collective consciousness about the true meaning of unity through diversity. The quest for perfection that had driven the convergence for millennia had finally been answered, not through forced uniformity, but through the beautiful chaos of free minds working together. And humanity, the species that had evolved in conditions that should have made civilization impossible, had shown the way.